Greetings and salutations. I'm America's R&B historian, Tyrone Dubois. And my friends, you're watching the one, the only, The Cindy Davis Show.
My name is Cindy Davis Evans of The Cindy Davis Show. Thank you for joining me. I would like to give out a shout out to Andre Pittman of Enthroned Records for making this interview possible. Now, for my guest today is R&B historian and contributor to TV One's Unsung. He is also radio host of Timeless Tracks. Welcome, Mr. Tyrone Dubois. Greetings. Hello, Mr. Dubois.
Well, greetings and salutations to you.
Oh my goodness.
How are you today?
I'm
Good.
great. I'm great. How are you doing throughout this entire pandemic?
Well, you know what? I've kept myself busy. So, for me, it's actually worked out pretty well. No complaints on my end.
So what have you been keeping yourself busy doing?
Well, I tell you, there's been a few things, including one, I needed to kind of reinvent myself. I made this opportunity for me to make sure that I, reinvented who I was, what I wanted to do. I wrote my book recently that's coming out here in the next month called The Four Seasons of R&B, based on my top 10 R&B picks of the decades from the 60s through the 90s. And that's been my dream. I said I was always, I wanted to write a book, but I really just needed to just reinvent my life. I mean, not just, working, of course, in television on Unsung and doing Show Underwood Show and other things. I just felt like I really needed to do some different things, and I did.
Well, I tell you, you have been busy. Congratulations on everything.
Thank
Now,
you very much.
yes. So tell me, let's kind of go back kind of over your life a little bit. How was your childhood like? Were you raised by both your parents?
I was raised by my mom for the most part, and my grandparents. It's somehow or another. Whenever there's an element of a grandparent with you, somehow or another, things always, it helps you to guide your way. And I was, for the most part, though, raised by my mom, and in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where I was born, and
Hmm.
it was pretty unique at best, but yeah, it was okay.
Yeah. Well, what was that like for you, growing up in Cincinnati?
It was a mixture of things for me, Cindy. I think part of it for me was being able to find myself. I think there was, a sense of adventure for me of wanting to be more or do more in life. I just, as a kid or even as a teenager, you weren't exactly sure what that was going to be. Eventually, I thought first I wanted to be this big baseball player, and then,
Uh-huh.
as time went on, I was able to, and it was both either baseball or radio. I got an opportunity to do both, but more importantly, I'm living my dream no matter which way it was.
So, you proved that without a high school diploma, that you could be successful. Wow, that how did that happen? Why did you drop out of high school?
I think, you know I think part of it was that somehow or another life happens.
Mhm.
You get a job, and somehow or another the job becomes more important than an education, and then somehow or another you want a car, and then you have a kid, and then
Oh,
all of a sudden things snowball to some sense of an effect where
yeah.
your priorities to some degree begin to change, and that's kind of what happened in that regard to me.
Yeah. And so even though you had dropped out of high school, little education, how did you go come from there to TV's One Unsung and to your own radio show?
Well, I think from the standpoint of, I'm a man who was always determined to be something, get somewhere, do something. I didn't want to make excuses. I realized that, at some point in my life, I just needed to be more than just this this guy who just had a job or something, you know, and listening to Casey Kasem as a kid in Cincinnati, Ohio, helped me a great deal in being able to figure out, you know, I think I wanted to do radio, but I think, you know, there, and being perfectly honest with your, with your fans and the people on your show, you know, I've had many missteps, you know, I had to figure it out to some degree.
How long did it take you to become an R&B historian, though?
I think it was always there, Cindy, to be honest with you. I think I
Yeah.
always had it, but I think I was trying to at some point learn how to connect the dots, if that makes sense. I really wasn't sure how to
Yeah.
connect. I felt as though I like when I would see people on television, you know, when they were saying music historian, you know, I had to make a choice because the truth was I actually knew pop music better than I did R&B. But at some
Mhm.
point, there was one day a guy spoke with me and he said, Tyrone, what do you do? And I said, I do radio, I do television, I do voiceovers. But then he looked me in my face and he said, but what do you do?
Oh.
And I remember like not wanting to really see him, like didn't want to really answer because it's clear that what the first answer wasn't right. And he said, you don't know what you want. He said, but the next time someone asks you that question, you better have an answer. And Cindy, I couldn't sleep for days because I knew this guy was right. I knew he was
Yeah.
telling the truth, you know, when he
Yeah.
said that. Yeah.
A lot of people are identified by their job, but it's like, what is your calling? What are you born to do?
Yeah. I think to be perfectly honest, I really didn't start into radio until well until I was 40 years old. And part of that was because I just didn't, I think at some point you try to find an identity of yourself. You know, I was
Hmm.
doing public access radio, I mean television for a while and that went fine. But at some point I just didn't know what to do. And I guess as time went on, the right breaks, meeting the right people,
Hmm.
being more determined and, you know, having a lot of setbacks helped me get here. My struggles have been my strength.
So what did you do before radio?
I worked in warehousing actually.
Hmm.
I thought I was going to. I love being warehousing because I was an organizer. I knew how to organize and put things together. And we
Yeah.
kind of just find our niche as time goes on. We believe that's where we land. And with a little bit or lack thereof of an education, I really wasn't sure, you know, what I could do or where I was supposed to be. And so I just said, okay, if a warehouse is where I'm going to be, then I'm going to be the best warehouse person. And I just felt like that's where I felt like I got my skills and I started creating and being able to become a, you know, a great warehouse manager.
Oh, so you became a manager. So you've always been a hard worker and kind of work your way up.
Yeah, I think so.
Uh,
Yeah, I'd say that.
yeah. So what kind of TV show did you host before radio?
It was my own, before Unsung, I was doing my own show, but what I did was, it was called the Tyrone Dubose Show. And what I did was I would do subjects that weren't timely. You know, we'd have
Uh,
discussion, we'd have different things. And
uh-huh.
but it was nothing that was time dated. It was something that would help me to get better at, you know, learning how to talk and just have a simple conversation. One of the things I learned when you have interviews with people, you're not
Mhm.
interviewing, you're just having a conversation. And if you treat
Yeah.
it like a conversation, you know, it works out better. Because then it's the way I do unsung. You know, when I'm talking to somebody, I make it seem like, well, I'm just talking about my friend. And it,
Oh,
you know, it makes it a lot easier.
yeah, yeah. It puts everybody at ease as well.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
So when you became a celebrity, how did that change your life?
I I've hit so many low points in my life.
Yeah.
Um I wasn't sure that for years and years, you know how you think this is what I want to be. Yeah, yeah, you know, this is all gonna work out great. And there are other days I go, oh my God, what the heck am I doing? You know, but the one thing I've learned, I've had a great amount of people around me that I've met along my journey that have helped me to continue to always stay humble and
Yeah.
kind and treat everybody really well. So in my mind, I really want to believe I never meet a stranger. It's kind of scary sometimes. I'm not gonna deny that, but for the most part, it's, you know, this has been my dream. This is always what I wanted to do and be.
So you have that the rich baritone radio voice, and did you have any idea at the time when you were growing up that I could probably do something with this voice, or was it something that was different? Did you get Did you get bullied because you had, because your voice was so different or
Well,
anything like that?
here's what's so unique. It didn't turn out this way until a little after being my teenage and becoming a little older. And I remember my mother saying, son, that voice is going to make you a lot of money or get you in a lot of trouble. And I had no comment, Cindy, on either.
It probably did both, right?
Yeah, I would venture to say you're probably right. I say that.
Oh, wow, 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 wow. So, tell me, what did Casey Kasem teach you? I understand you were a protege of his.
I met as a kid in Cincinnati, every Sunday on WSAI in Cincinnati, there was a show that came on and it was called American Top 40. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that fascinated me about Casey Kasem was he not only just told you about the song and where it was in the countdown, but he told you a little bit about the artist. And so I was really intrigued by that. I would get to the point where, well, I didn't want to not listen to the show because I wanted to know who he was talking about and where it landed on the charts. And I remember just recently on Sirius XM, they always play his songs. They play his countdown on the weekends. And I remember listening to the song and the show, one particular show, and I remembered it, and I was 15 years old. It was 1975.
I loved his show. I'd watch this show every week.
And I remembered that particular show that was the #1 song in America. He says, coming up, the #1 song in America by an artist who has a Monopoly set. And he said it used sterling silver houses and real gold hotels. And he said it only cost $5,000. But I said it word for word because I remembered at 15 years old listening to that particular show. That's how important it was to me. By the way, that artist was Elton John. He was the one who helped me. Yeah.
Wow.
But I wanted to be Casey Kasem. I wanted to be this guy. And so I met him at a radio place where they had all these legends of radio here. And I remember going and I saw his face and I said, oh my God, it's Casey Kasem. That's him. So I ran into the bathroom and I wanted to make sure I looked real presentable, and I walked over to him and I said, Mr. Kasem? And he said, call me Casey. And I went, no, sir, I'm not calling.
Why?
I was like, I was such enthralled. But But he was so kind, and he was, and I remember telling him things and talking to him, and it was a big deal to me. It was everything to get a chance to see my idol. And I told him, I'm going to be just like you. One day I'm going to do my show. I'm emulating you. I'm going to be just like you. And I had to make a decision about whether I wanted to do the pop charts or the R&B charts. And I decided I need to focus on the R&B charts. And that's how it worked for me.
Okay. And it seems like it's worked out very well for you. Is that when you started your own radio show, Timeless Tracks?
Yes. When I started Timeless Tracks, I was driving 146 miles. I would go to my regular job as a warehouse manager, and then I would drive from Los Angeles to a place called Barstow, California, which is halfway to Vegas, at 146 miles exactly. I would go to sleep for a couple of hours, then go to the radio station and be on the air from midnight to 6. And as time went on, people think that, well, you just listen to music. But in my mind, every time the music was on and all that stuff, I was writing out my own show saying, I'm going to be like Casey Kasem. So I'm going to make this show called Timeless Tracks based on the countdown of the top R&B songs in America, according to the national R&B singles charts. And what made it unique is that I would put in, like, if the song was at number 10 was The Temptations, song at number 9 was Keith Sweat, 1985, song at number 8 was in the 90s, song in the 60s. And that's what I was doing, getting into a #1 song in America, telling them a little bit about the artist.
Wow. Wow. I understand that you overcame a bout with cancer. How did overcoming cancer change your life?
Yeah, things were going pretty well. and I was seeing somebody, and her father was passing away of cancer, and she kept saying, have you had a cancer checkup? And I said, nothing's wrong with me. Everything's okay. I mean, I don't know why you're doing all. Well, I think you should go get one. I think you should go get one. And I said, I just think you're panicking because your father's passing away. And finally, she just kept on needle. I said, let me just go. So I just get this out the way. And sure enough, I had cancer.
Oh,
And I remember the doctor saying, we have to operate now. He said, and then he put up 6 fingers. And I said, what does that mean? It could be 6 years. It could be 6 months. We have to operate now. And so
yeah.
in my mind, like everybody that I was seeing, I remember thinking, this could be the last time I see this person.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And I remember after it was all over, I remember saying, okay, I've already in my mind felt like I was thinking I was somebody or thinking I was winner, but I'd always had in the back of my mind, I really hadn't made much of my life. And I kept saying, okay, I remember being in the hospital and okay, I'm gonna be more kinder now. I'm gonna make this dream come true. I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna be better a person, a better, just try to do things better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. And so it changed your life as far as your perspective on life and you wanting to be a better person. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, after you fight for your life, you don't fight with people anymore. At some point, you become a different person. You don't see people the same. You don't see life the same. You recognize that the most valuable asset you have is your time. And I no longer, gave my full time to part-time people. And, I started seeing myself to some degree separating from people that I recognize really in the grand scheme of what I was trying to be and do, just we didn't see things the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 I get it. Yeah. Some people are meant to go with you. Some people are not meant to go with you. And you have to discern that.
Yeah, and it
You have it.
includes friends and family. It includes
Oh,
both.
oh, okay. Did you have any spiritual background growing up? Gospel roots?
I This is what's so odd, and
Hmm.
of course, as a kid, you were made to go to church. I only went to church because I knew the candy store was across the street, and you laters and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
nine laters. Oh, I
Yeah,
love nine laters.
yeah, exactly. So when I moved out here to LA, I remember I got a ticket. There was an older lady there at I don't know what she said. She said something to me, and I was a kid. And I said, "It's over there, your old bag," or something like that.
Oh my God.
So a
Yeah.
cop heard me say it,
Who heard
and
you say it?
a police officer,
Oh, okay.
and he gave me a ticket for disorderly conduct.
Really?
He did. So I had to go to court.
Uh-huh.
The judge says, "Oh, I know what to do. I'm going to sentence you to 100 hours working at a church with elderly people." So
What?
for 100 hours, I had to do this within 6 months. I went to work and then I had to go to this church. And
Yeah.
then as I went to this church, it included driving the elderly people to church every Sunday. That was 41 years ago. I still take the elderly people to church every Sunday.
Oh my God. Look at that. Look how that turned out.
Yeah, still take them to church.
That's amazing. I
Oh, and
love
by the way, the
it.
judge in that of that particular thing, he worked at that church. He was part of the church.
Oh, what? Amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's like, yeah, we need some volunteers anyway. You'll be perfect.
So I remember that once I learned years from someone years ago. She said to me, "Write." She says, "If you really want to talk to God," she said,
Yeah.
"write a letter and put it in your Bible, And I remember she told me that. And it's so ironic we having this conversation because in my Bible, there's like a bunch of letters. Letters from me when I felt like I was at my worst. I saw the letter when I was on my way to the hospital. Like, God, if you let me just
Yeah.
live. Yeah, I saw that letter. I saw there were so many different letters at different times and
In your
periods,
life.
places, and thoughts in my life. My journey was
Hmm.
in those letters that I would write to God in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Amazing.
it's still there.
It's still there. Yeah. So every now
Letters.
and then, you go back and you run across those
Yeah,
letters.
and I saw different periods and times in my life.
And it just, yeah, how did that make you feel?
It it showed amazing growth, but it also showed the power of what God was able to do to get me to where I am today. And
Yeah.
that helps. That
Yeah.
makes me feel good. That made me
Yeah.
feel good. Yeah.
And so you can look back over your life and see how far God has brought you. I
Yes.
do the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, you've brought me so far. I'm just so grateful to have gone through 2020, you know, and to still be here and to give my testimony of His goodness,
Yes. Yes,
and,
indeed.
and
Yes,
to
indeed.
continue to do what I do.
Yes, absolutely. And that's our
Absolutely.
supposed to find our niche and find the things that we, that we want to do to some degree. That's what we do.
So let me ask you this: what is one of the biggest misconceptions someone may have about you? Are there any?
Um, I think as a public figure or a celebrity, you don't want to think people do,
Yeah, you
but
don't.
I really, I think this pandemic
Hmm.
has really taught me a lot about people. And I think what the biggest misconception is that they think that I'm bigger than what I am. And they have no idea. It's so weird this morning, right before you called, before you did this, my neighbor next door, she had one of those macarons. I said, I'll trade a macaron for you for a hot pickle. And so we switched. She got the pickle and I got the macaron. It's like, but people's misconception is that they believe that this all came about with ease. And they don't realize that this room right here where I'm in, my office right here, is where it all began in my home. Where I remember people telling me one day that I kept saying one day I was going to be something or do something. And but their biggest misconception is believing that I'm more than what they see on television and radio. And it's I'm not. I'm really just
You're just around.
yeah, I'm just really an average guy. And that's the one thing that I really want people to hear and see of me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. People do have a big misconception about you a lot of times when you're a public figure or a celebrity, but you just want to be you, and but sometimes they just won't let you be you. They put
It's
you
one of the hardest things that I think I've had to learn in my journey. I've learned both friends and family somehow or another don't see they they don't look for what's right about you. They look for what's wrong about you. And
it's
I think this private time of me reinventing and checking me and finding out who's real and who isn't has really helped me to be, a better person and made me recognize that life was going to change for me forever. And I was never, and I know that even now that my life will never be the same again. It just won't be the same.
absolutely. We learn and we grow. That's
Yeah,
what life is about. It's
yeah,
it's
no, I
about
agree.
it's about growing and learning your lessons along the way.
Yes, yes, indeed. I mean, I've had many struggles. People don't know that. But the one thing I can truly say is the whole time that I thought that my struggles were holding me back,
Hmm.
they were they were really giving me the tools to become one of the best.
Oh, that's
And
a good statement.
and so for me, there is no more second guessing and no more blaming others, for the problems and the place in which I am in my life and where I am in my life. It's just a new day. That's how I look at
Yeah, yeah. That's a beautiful way to look at it.
it. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of these. Let's talk about some music trivia just a little bit here. You know,
What?
1979 was a very good year for me personally because that was a year I turned 16. That was just a beautiful year. And there was so much good music out at that time. What
Certainly
was no,
was.
yeah, what was number one in 1979?
Ah, came to the right person. Let me give you some of those. Okay. Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive. That was number one.
Mm,
Donna Summer, Hot Stuff. Nita Ward, Ring My Bell.
mhm.
And the Bee Gees had three number ones in the year of 1979. Too Much Heaven, Tragedy, and Love You Inside Out. McFadden and Whiteheads, Ain't No Stopping Us Now. That was 1979, although it didn't reach number one, but it
Oh,
was the
okay.
only one-hit wonder platinum selling single.
Wow. How long did Ring My Bell stay on the charts?
Ring My Bell stayed on the
Number one.
charts. It stayed on number one for 2 weeks. But here's the deal. On the pop charts, remember, there's the pop charts and the R&B chart. And what people don't understand is that when you cross over, when an R&B artist crosses over to the pop charts, that means that both white and black people are spying your records.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. One of the things that happened then, I remember, was Minnie Riperton passed away in the year of 1979.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Memory Lane did not go to number one, but it was one of her biggest songs. It was definitely one of her biggest songs.
What can you tell us about a celebrity that we may not know? Do you know anything about Aretha Franklin or maybe Whitney Houston that we may not know about?
Here's one thing that I can tell you about Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston is the biggest R&B female artist, period. Bigger than Mariah Carey, bigger than Aretha Franklin. She had 13 consecutive number one singles. 13. And there is nobody who was bigger. No one. And but here's the unique part. In the 80s, in the 70s, I should say, Aretha Franklin was the queen of soul.
Yes.
But the queen of soul in the 80s was Aretha Franklin. She was the biggest R&B artist in the 80s. And the second biggest artist, female artist in the 80s of R&B, it wasn't Whitney,
Uh-huh.
it wasn't Anita Baker, it wasn't Patti LaBelle, it was
Mm.
Stephanie Mills.
What?
Yeah,
Stephanie Mills?
she was the biggest.
Really?
She was the
I
second biggest.
love Stephanie Mills too, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah, but just barely. She was
That's
almost,
fair.
she
Wow.
just lost, she had just beat, she was second. Aretha was number one, but just barely, because Stephanie was a snail's whisker behind her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the most interesting or unsung episode that you collaborated on?
I think the one that always sticks out with me is Martha
Mhm.
Wash, because
Oh,
Martha Wash had three number one singles and got credit for none of them. And that was
my,
like Everybody Dance Now, Strike It Up, everybody. These were three number one singles, and she got credit for none of them. And
wow.
as time went on, they finally gave her credit. But I remember saying on the television show, the pay didn't match the pain. And
Yeah.
if anybody was unsung, it was clearly Martha Wash. And part of the reason why we didn't hear a lot about it, because when they found out about what happened to her, Milli Vanilli was then creeping up and having part of its issues. And so they backpedaled on Martha Wash.
Wow, that is so sad. Wow.
Yeah,
Did she ever get her royalties from that song
she
ever?
did. She did.
She
And in fact, in most books, it says CNC Music Factory is, this is their song. However,
Mhm.
Martha Wash is credited for this single. She went back and
Mhm.
got it. She also was did the song with I Who Have Nothing with Luther Vandross. Many people thought that was Cheryl Lynn. It was Martha Wash.
It was? Oh
Yes,
my goodness.
that was Martha Wash. She
I'm
was
have to go
also
back
the
and
back.
listen to that.
Yeah, she was also the backup singer for Rebe Jackson's Centipede. Yeah.
what would be your legacy?
Um, there was um a commercial that they play all the time, those pass it on commercials. And I love them because they show different things about, they says respect, pass it on, or such and such. And I love those commercials. But they have this one commercial where they show people being, it's always, and the song says, always be humble and kind. You know, hold the door, place, say please, say thank you, just little things like that. I really want my legacy to be somebody who really found themselves, but was always humble and kind in his journey of making his dreams come true.
Thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be on your show, and thank you so much for choosing me to be here. It means a lot.
Oh, wow. Of course. Of course. Thank you so much for your
Yes, ma'am.
time.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
for
No worries.
sharing everything that you have shared today. I'm sure it's going to bless a lot of people.
I certainly hope so.
Just
Thank you
bless a
very
lot of
much. I'm honored to be here, and if you need me for anything, please, by all means, just let me know. Thank you so much. It means a lot.